Hi, welcome to my video presentation revisiting the dynamics of air. I'm Wagenfeld from the School of Design at RMIT University in Melbourne, Australia. I'm sorry that I cannot attend this conference in person, so I've prepared this film to be my proxy. Here I will discuss the research exhibition Dynamics of Air, which Jane Burry and I curated in late 2018, which tapped into a growing international body of creative and scientific investigations into a relationship with and experience of air, atmosphere, and climate. Dynamics of Air was a survey of 28 commissioned projects and investigations by leading designers, architects, artists, and researchers. In this film and accompanying paper, I will walk through and discuss the ideas behind this exhibition with a focus on 4 installations which actively shaped the air and ambience around them. Experiential environments in which visitors could explore the poetics of breath and dwell on nuanced shifts in microclimates, felt through the skin and inhaled through the lungs. Although an industrial designer, my practice concerns itself more with designing the material. A central concern is how we conceive of air and the experience of air as a design medium within the built environment. I refer to my practice as the aesthetics of air, and have been exploring this territory for well over a decade. Much of this exploration has involved phenomenological studies in which I seek to interrogate the many nuanced relational qualities of air. I use exhibitions as an opportunity to not only showcase these explorations, but also to create experiential environments that generate a dialogue with an audience. I will give 3 examples. The first being atmospheric sensitivity. An extremely fine fog is produced by an array of piezoelectric transducers, placed in a hidden trough and appears mysteriously on a long, narrow shelf. The fog revealed even the most subtle atmospheric disturbances within the gallery. Visitors were encouraged to interact with this fog by blowing, waving, walking past, and so on, to observe the effect of these otherwise invisible phenomena. But something else unexpected happened. The fog would manifest in different formations at different times of the day and from one day to the next. This was most evident when the weather outside the gallery changed or was about to change. Even though the air-conditioned gallery is closed off from the outside, the internal microclimate appeared to remain connected. The second atmospheric structure involved a custom-built apparatus which shot a dipolar vortex or smoke ring every minute into the gallery space. Revealed was an ethereal world of transient fluid movement, surprisingly structured yet highly sensitive. Although the apparatus was finely tuned, each ring would take on a different trajectory and evolve into a different form. Some compact rings moving quickly, followed by larger rings proceeding lethargically, as the atmospheric system at play within the gallery impacted differently on each. The third example, Night Window, was a more immersive experiential installation. Sited in an old homestead recently renovated and transformed into a gallery, Night Window was intended to prompt discussion amongst visitors about how a room's perceptual properties are affected by removing the ability to open and close its windows. A number of perceptual tricks generated the impression of an open window on a summer's night, a gentle rainstorm brewing outside, fragrant, moist, cool air, night sounds, and rhythmically billowing curtains activated by gentle air currents. Although the intent was to provoke discussion rather than point towards a possible design intention, I was struck by the success of the overall perceptual effect. This led me to deliberate about how a number of atmospheric phenomena, when combined, can generate rich immersive perceptual qualities and experiences, engendering an aesthetics of air. My investigations sought to devise a method of unraveling the dilemma of how, as designers, can we conceptualize and design aesthetic atmospheres. When I began my investigations into air, the topic was often seen by others even colleagues, as an intriguing but somewhat off-centre issue. But over the decade, I've observed a discernible shift. How we, collectively, think about air has changed. When we think about the atmosphere that surrounds us, do we consider it part of our planet or part of the cosmos above us? I would argue that for much of human history it was the former, that we considered the earth to be the solid material mass, the soil and rocks, and the air to belong to the sky. The breath that we exhaled and the smoke from our chimneys, our intuition told us, would float off into the vast nothingness above us and disappear forever. But two critical things may have manifested a change in this perception. The first is having seen the Earth from space, in which the atmosphere appears as a wafer-thin blue rim that surrounds our planet. The second is the growing awareness of climate change, that all those gases we have pumped into the atmosphere have not disappeared, but instead accumulated to the point where they are now changing the global weather system, and with it the planet and everything that inhabits this blue dot. The realization that the atmosphere is a shared medium and a limited resource has entered our global consciousness. Towards the end of 2019, already in this Australian spring, we saw catastrophic bushfires. In early 2020, they have escalated to wreak unprecedented devastation. Even in central Melbourne, I can smell and feel the smoke as I speak. But although this issue is deeply linked to my design practice, in this presentation I will focus on another aspect, on how can we rethink our relationship to air, how will we live with a changing climate, and how will we design our climatic experiences. Will we cocoon ourselves in hermetically sealed air-conditioned rooms, or will we develop a new relationship? In 2018, Jane Burry and I co-curated the exhibition Dynamics of Air, which taps into a growing international body of creative and scientific investigation into a relationship with and experience of air, atmosphere, and climate. The exhibition was conceived as a form of research lab where ideas could be explored and tested. Most of the work was developed specifically for the exhibition and installed by the artists who flew in from around the globe. This period of collectively installing the show fostered an incredibly rich dialogue and exchange of ideas between the artists. The work presented involves a broad transdisciplinary group of artists, designers, scientists, and theorists who are asked to develop new original works in response to the curatorial ideas. RMIT Gallery, where the exhibition was mounted, offers 6 unique gallery spaces, which allowed us to curate the work thematically as an assemblage of experiences with different levels of sensory through to intellectual engagement. In the foyer, the visitor encountered an almost weightless but geometrically complex form which explores air as generative structure, juxtaposed into the heavily walled neoclassical stairwell of the gallery. Moving into the lofty Gallery 1 and adjacent Gallery 4 spaces, the visitor immerses in the poetics of breath, wind, and air movement. In Gallery 2 and 3, experiential environments allow visitors to dwell and explore the nuanced shifts in microclimates. Finally, the projects in Gallery 5 explored the science of talk. I will now focus on the work which created either experiential encounters with air or generated perceptively rich experiential environments. In particular, I will focus on 4 related installations. I begin with 2 works by Berlin-based artist Edith Korlath. In the centre of Gallery 1, we encounter the piece Nothing Will Ever Be the Same. A translucent cloth is set in motion, drifting poetically from the ceiling, is then lifted and released again by an automatic mechanism. Like the periodic rhythm of breath, inhalation, pause, exhalation, pause, the action is repeated and yet results in subtly different flights, each time revealing the transient and unpredictable dynamics of air. At the end wall of Gallery 4 hang 2 intriguing glass vessels. The work, titled Liminal Passage, is a form of breath exchanger. In Liminal Passage, breath is passed through the glass object, cleaned by the water, and the breathing gas absorbed on the opposite side via a mouthpiece. To make this a reciprocal process, the positions of the donor and recipient are then reversed. Although we regularly, but perhaps unknowingly, inhale the breath of others, through the inhaling and exhaling of air molecules that have previously passed through the bodies of another, rarely is this shared process of breathing visualized or physically perceived through the pressure of breath, so personal and perhaps confronting. In Gallery 2 we installed Aerosol, a large-scale climatic project by the Austrian group Breathe Earth Collective that reinterprets the traditional vernacular of graduation towers from the regions around Germany and Austria. These structures were originally used for mining salt from saline spring water, but people began to notice the curious health benefits of breathing in the salty air, similar to the restorative benefits of being at the seaside. Since then, these graduation towers have become health spas for treating lung diseases and promoting the benefits of salty air. They also act as giant evaporative coolers and create a very pleasant, cool environment on a hot summer day. For this installation, Breathe Earth Collective wanted to have an Australian connection using indigenous materials. The bundles of twigs play a key part in splitting the water drops to form a fine mist. To perform this function, they must be very hard. We also wanted them to contribute natural essential oils. We consulted Sophia Pearce, a first Australian Barkungji woman who recommended a native Melaleuca shrub, also known as broom brush or tea tree, which her people use for cleansing ceremonies. For the equally critical saline solution, we used salt harvested from the Pink Lakes and Murray River, about 350 kilometres inland from Melbourne. Through the dripping of saline water over the twigs, ethereal oils and essences are vaporized and unleashed to the air in the gallery. Simply by being in the gallery space, you are inhaling the aerosols, which activate the lungs and blood circulation. The installation created an incredibly serene sensory experience, a very relaxing and rejuvenating environment, felt on the skin and in the lungs, with its moist, cool, fragrant, salty air and gentle and soft rain soundscape. Infrared images using a FLIR camera confirmed the dynamic microclimate. People would come and just sit there for an extended period, inhaling the ethereal, health-giving air. One woman even commented that she would come most every day over the 10-week period to recover from her hay fever. Aerosol is a prototype for an internal installation suitable for many different building types and uses, from hospitals to offices, municipal buildings, hotels, and airports. The final installation I will discuss is Outside In, a collaboration between the German climate engineering company Transolar and myself. The work explored how to translate perceptual climatic experiences one might have in the outside environment, including transient breezes, temperature variations, dappled warm, and pockets of cool air, and so on, in an interior space, hence to bring the outside in. Early ideas for this project revolved around creating a series of microclimatic experiences, from the crisp mountain air to the rainforest and desert. But after many Skype discussions with Thomas Ower, we decided to hone these down to merely two interacting environments, the Australian beach and the German forest. The simplicity of this concept appealed and resonated with previous explorations, such as Night Window, which demonstrated that by carefully manipulating a few atmospheric phenomena, an incredibly rich and perceptually dynamic environment can be generated. The work occupies the entirety of Gallery 3, a large geometric structure consisting of two parabolic concave surfaces sitting back to back at a 34-degree incline, cave-like on one side and dune-like on the other, is strategically placed slightly skew near the center of the gallery space. Dual interacting microclimates were created on each side of this structure using high-pressure water and specially fabricated jets with microapertures to produce a dry mist, as well as infrared heat. On one side, the cool, dark and moist air of a forest gorge, and the other, the hot, dry and bright experience of the beach under the radiant warmth of a simulated sun. The walls reflected a specially calibrated LED light, simulating the iridescent green of a forest canopy and the deep, transcendental eaves-climb blue of the ocean sky. Although two distinct microclimatic experiences were created, a key part of this work is how these interact and morph at the edges, impacting on each other to create a spectrum of dynamic and transient microclimatic bodily encounters. As visitors slowly move through the space, they experience subtle sensory shifts in atmosphere and perceptual environments. The parabolic structure at the center was a critical component in shaping these microclimates. At one point, I had an intense discussion with some colleagues who suggested I remove the structure and rely only on the atmospheric phenomena. I toyed with this idea for a few days before coming back to my original concept, drawing on previous experiments and observations in which I learned that the secret lies in how the immaterial atmospheric phenomena interact and are fashioned by the physical world. The moist core of a forest gorge is shaped and caught between the lush canopy of the trees and the radiating cold of the stone rock face. Likewise, the thermal mass of the beach dune reflects the sun's light and radiates its warmth on one side and protects from the other. This work operates on two levels. On the first, it explores a move away from the paradigm of standardized monoclimatic interior air associated with air-conditioned interiors towards the production of healthy interior climates where occupants are offered a range of microclimatic experiences. A key hypothesis explored here is that the qualities of air we experience in a pleasurable outdoor environment hold important clues as to how we can shape interior atmospheres. The second level of this investigation explored how this can be staged in interior space. My larger goal is to create dynamic interior microclimates by employing passive strategies, aiming for a net zero carbon footprint, which in this case was not possible within the air-conditioned gallery space. As I touched on earlier, Dynamics of Air was conceived as a type of live research lab, a site of investigation in which participants audition ideas, curate experiences of air and atmosphere, observe and discover. A critical part of an ongoing conversation between an international network of practitioners and the audience. Coming back to a previous point regarding climate change and the tragedy of the bushfires and associated environmental catastrophe we are currently experiencing in Australia. The only positive we might take out of this is that it has finally reignited public debate around the long-term climate and our options. These are certainly not the type of experiences we want to have. But seeing the smoke and smelling the haze, watering eyes, near 50 degrees Celsius temperatures flying by 90-kilometer winds, makes the reality of our situation much more real than any abstract discussion of facts and figures. Experiences are bodily encounters deeply seated in our collective psyche. Over the last few weeks or months, these personal encounters have found a raging debate across the continent, not only about climate change, but also about how we wish to live in the future, and what sort of future we can collectively envision and work towards. This demonstrates the profound power of experiential encounters. Designing dynamic and experientially rich microclimatic environments in place of standardized, always the same air-conditioned spaces devoid of rich perceptual encounters not only offers engaging spaces for working and living, but also substantially reduced environmental footprint, and arguably keeps us more closely connected with a more symbiotic relationship to the larger environmental reality. Thank you.